I'll retire when I die. So I figured that was just the normal thing to do. And I decided if I could find something I enjoyed doing, that I didn't really see a point in not working. But the question that they asked me is, well, Evan, what happens if you can't work till the day that you die, right? What happens if you physically can't? What happens if you get sick, hurt, or something happens where you can't? Then what happens? And that changed my perspective like crazy on that. But then again, what is our plan to achieve these goals? If we don't have a vision for us and our families, and we don't have a goal that's frequently reviewed, it's actually very hard to stay on track, right? No different than any other goals in life, whether that's a fitness goal, a health goal, or any of these other things. If we don't measure it and we don't track it, it's hard to stay on track and to realize where we're at. So today in this workshop, we're going to talk about and discuss, how to discover maybe $100 or more that we didn't know we had. We're going to find out maybe where some of our money is going. And I know that in the beginning, I thought that sounded like a funny statement, but when I actually sat down to think about and figure out where my money was going, I realized it was very true that there's money every month that often we don't even realize where it goes. Build a real plan to become debt-free faster, and also ways to increase our cash flow. Because ultimately, we live in a day and age where majority of families don't earn enough income to be able to not only keep up with their monthly expenses, but also to get ahead, to save more money, to pay off debt quicker, and all this other kind of stuff, right? And so again, we know that money isn't the greatest asset, but applied knowledge is. And then one other thing we're going to talk about too, and we'll get to that, but it's not always how much we earn that matters either, right? So there's only two ways that we can increase our cash flow. One, we can spend less, and two, we can earn more. Now, I haven't met many people that like number one as much as they like number two. I'll be honest, I like number two a whole lot better. When they showed me this, I said, hey, that's great. Just teach me number two. If I can learn how to do number two really well, I can earn a ton of money, then I don't have to worry about where I'm spending my money, right? But in all reality, it doesn't matter how much money we earn. It matters what we keep, right? Because again, if I earn $50,000 a year, I can spend it all. But if I earn $500,000 a year, it's also possible to spend it all as well, right? So again, it just might mean I have a nicer car, a nicer house, or different things like that. My lifestyle could just change, right? So again, it doesn't always matter when we just earn more. We also have to be aware of where our money's going. So this is a huge concept that we talk about in all our workshops, but especially in this one, is we talk about the concept of paying ourselves first. Now, if you've read different books, they talk about it in there, but this is something that we teach a lot. And the reason being is if we don't make saving a priority, if we don't make it a habit, if we don't make it, a focus, it usually doesn't happen, right? Just like almost anything in life. So again, it doesn't mean that you have to save maybe half your income right away. It's just an example. But let's say we save money and then we create our lifestyle and we spend what's left, right? Maybe it's $50 a month. Maybe it's $100 a month to start. But when you get paid, if you set that money aside initially and don't touch it, and then you spend what's left, over time, even if it doesn't happen right away, you'll move towards the path of financial independence as long as you keep doing that habit. But majority of families, and myself included, we spend, and then at the end of the month, we attempt to save what's left. Now, in the beginning, this was very easy for me. At the end of the month, I'd still have quite a bit of money left over because in the beginning, when I first learned this information, I lived at home, I had a cheap car, and I didn't spend a ton of money. But then I moved out, I bought an expensive car, and I did a whole bunch of other stuff. And all of a sudden, if I didn't make the priority to save in the beginning, there was no way it was going to happen at the end, because ultimately it's very easy to live well beyond our means, let alone save any money after that yet too, right? So again, that could mean that we possibly work for the rest of our life. So the reason we talk about this is sometimes it's just that small habit, that small discipline over a long period of time that makes a big difference. Now, again, how big of a difference that makes is entirely up to each individual, depending on how much we save, right? And how much time we have to save. So again, making the first payment to us and our family and our future, and then spending what's left, right? Making sure that, I believe everyone would agree that your family's future or your future is probably more important than your Netflix subscription or your cable bill or whatever these other things are, maybe our daily Starbucks or whatever it is. Now, again, I'm not harping on any of those things, but it comes down to it is what's most important to us, right? What at the end of the day, have I saved at least 10% of this month's income yet? And maybe in the beginning it's 5%, or maybe you can do 20%, right? Everybody's different and everybody's in a different situation, but let's find ways to save more and spend less. So again, I've had people say, "Hey, Evan, I'm young, or I have kids. I wanna have fun with my family. I don't want to save money yet." Right? So I'm going to show you as we go through this that it's not always about saving a ton of money right away, is that, and eliminating all the fun things that we do in life, right? Where it's actually many times it's just small habits and disciplines that change over time, and your idea of fun, it still exists there, right? But something I encourage everybody to do that I sit down with. So again, if this is your first time on these workshops or it's your 10th time, I encourage you to do this. This is something that changed the way my wife and I look at where our money goes, and it's helped us a lot. But look at where you spend your money. Itemize the things that you buy and write down the amount. And I encourage you, do this for an entire month. Do it for 3 months, 6 months, maybe even do it for a year, right? But track everything that you spend money on. And then at the end of the month or at the end of each day, you can look at it and say, hey, where did I spend my money? Did I spend it wisely? If I paid with a credit card, can I pay my credit card off in full, right? Or did I spend money that I don't have? So again, I encourage you to do this. For us, one thing it did is it showed us how much we were spending in areas that weren't really that important to us, right? We used to eat out a lot. Now we eat out very little, and it saves us a ton of money, right? For anybody who eats out, that it costs a lot of money to eat out. And it's nice because it's convenient, and generally we find ourselves eating out more when we don't have anything prepared at home and stuff like that. And we live right in town, so it's very easy. But, is it really worth, $50 or $30 or whatever it is just for the convenience of not, having something ready? But again, like I said, I'm not here to harp on anybody's habits or what we do. This is just some things that we've learned, and I want to share them with you as I go, because sometimes, maybe it helps you, maybe it's something you've been thinking about, and just something like that. So again, there's many ways to evaluate where our money goes each month, whether that's doing a personal financial strategy. I do this with many families where we go through this and we look at where our money goes. And this was actually one of the first times I realized that I had very little idea where all my money went, because I went through this information, and some of these questions I had no idea. And some of them, you buy clothing maybe once every couple of years or once a year or whatever it is. It's a hard one to sometimes remember, but often we lose track of automatic payments or, different things like that. So again, if you haven't done this, I encourage you, go through this with yourself or with the person that invited you and look at this kind of stuff. So when we talk about possible monthly savings, I'm going to go through a list here, and I know this list is in the workbook as well. But, again, not all of these areas might apply to you, but maybe some of them do. Maybe there's ways that you can reduce some of your expenses and help. It gives you a little bit extra money that you can either, if you have debt, maybe it can help you pay off your debt quicker. If you don't have debt, that's awesome. Maybe it just adds to the money that you can save, right? So one, if you receive a yearly tax refund, maybe you can adjust what's coming off of your paycheck, right? Some companies allow this, some don't, but maybe you can check with your HR or payroll department. Sometimes you're able to adjust the amount that gets taken off for income tax, where if, let's say you get $1,000 refund every year, maybe you can adjust it so that way you can save that money on your own instead of just paying extra to the government throughout the year and then getting it back, right? So again, when we reevaluate these, it's still important to use it for savings or paying off debt, so that way it's not that we're just spending it. Keep a warmer or cooler house. I always joke, if you're married, this is something you can argue with your spouse about. Or if you live at home with your parents, well, maybe you have to, well, you might not pay the hydro bill then anyways. But at the same time, this is a big thing. Eliminate or reduce premium cable or satellite services. I know many people pay a lot for this stuff. And sometimes in summer, as an example, we're away, we're camping, or we're just outside, enjoying the summer, and we don't even use it, right? So sometimes it's, even just beneficial to take a break during summer, or maybe there's a way to stream that one or two services that you actually use on your entire satellite package, where you can stream it for maybe, or even have a subscription to it for like a couple dollars a month through an internet provider, versus paying $100 or $200 a month for that, just a few packages, really the 5 channels out of the 200 that we use. Use coupons for groceries and dining out. Now, again, I'm not here to, tell anybody where you should spend your money. These are just some things that, we talk about, because it's often easy to lose track, right? Reduce the number of lattes, alcohol, cigarettes each month. So again, I'm not telling you that you can't have alcohol or lattes or cigarettes or any of this kind of stuff. But really, at the end of the day, each individual needs to look at it and say like, hey, is what I'm spending my money on worth more to me now than saving for my future or paying off debt and living financially free, right? Again, that's up to each individual to think about. If you're going to eat out, maybe you can eat out early, choose happy hour menus, pack your own lunch, right? This is something that growing up in a smaller town, I thought everybody did, to be honest. And then as I grew up and got older, I realized that it's actually very rare for people to pack their own lunch. Now, I'll be honest, sometimes you get tired of sandwiches, but depends on where you work. You can probably get pretty creative with packing a lunch. And even if you do it only a couple times a week, it'll probably still save you maybe, $20, $30, $100 for the few times that you don't go out to eat. Consider buying used cars or used vehicles. I always joke that this is the one I wish they would take out of here, because it always, my wife always laughs when I talk about this one, because, I'm a big car person and I enjoy vehicles, right? So buying vehicles is a lot of fun for me. But again, it costs a lot of money. And if you do it with money you don't have, it costs even more. Reevaluate your home and auto insurance on a regular basis. Just as an example, if your deductible is $500 now and you don't have a lot of claims or anything like that you make, maybe it's worth raising your deductible to $1,000. Or as an example, maybe it can help you reduce your premium by a little bit, and you can save that money on a monthly or a yearly basis. And then when you have to pay that deductible, you have the money saved there. Save by carpooling. Maybe you can walk, bike, or take public transport to where you work. And you probably then can save money on parking, stuff like that too. Cancel or reduce extras on cell phone plans and stuff like that. Sometimes there's extra data and features that we don't use, or maybe there's a new plan that came out. If you haven't gotten a new plan in the last couple of years, maybe there's sometimes an option to change your plan and get a better deal, right? Or maybe you work somewhere where you can get a corporate discount. If you own a cell phone, maybe you don't need to keep your old landline, right? So again, I know I taught these workshops out in the country the other day, and everybody laughed because it's a place where they have almost no cell service. So a landline out there is quite important. But if you live in the city or you live somewhere with cell service and you're never home, maybe a landline isn't very helpful. Play free video games. Cut down on online subscriptions. Again, these are easy for them to add up, and often we forget about them. We sign up for that free 30-day trial and we end up paying for the next 90 days because we had a free 30 days, right? And it's, that's how they get you. They know we're going to probably forget. Cancel magazine subscriptions on automatic renewal. I don't know if people have magazine subscriptions anymore. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but if you do, and you just throw them in the recycling or in the garbage, then it might not be beneficial. Cancel gym memberships you don't use. Maybe you can find alternate ways to exercise. Again, if you use your gym membership, that's awesome, right? It's just, again, if you don't use it, cancel or lower accidental death and dismemberment policies. This one we'll talk more about actually tomorrow on workshop number 3. And all I'm going to say about it is just make sure that the policies you have that you're paying for, just make sure what you're paying for is you're getting good value for what you're paying each month, right? So I'm not saying what's good or bad. And again, they're not even going to say that tomorrow. It's just a matter of, what you have. It's important to understand what we have and what we pay for. Cut down on shopping, whether that's clothes or gadgets or stuff like that. I know we always laugh about it in our house. My wife returns everything she buys, and I shop, and I like to look at all the gadgets that come out each year, whether that's Milwaukee or the tools that come out on all the emails that you get, or the new latest technology and stuff like that and gadgets. But again, is it important? Is it not? Right? Is it really a need? Credit on auto appliances, cycles, trailers, items we finance. We live in a world where we can finance absolutely everything these days. We can finance a smartwatch, you can finance a cell phone, you can finance a pedal bike from your local store, or your credit card maybe gives you the option. Whatever it is, we live in a buy now, pay later society, and often we don't realize how much extra that costs us when it comes to paying for items like a bike or a couch or a TV or whatever it is, because it's generally, and I'm not saying all the time, but generally I would find that, we would finance items that we often didn't really need, right? So again, reevaluating that. Household services, whether cleaning and repairs, maybe you have the ability to do some of it yourself and save yourself some money. Or maybe you're in business, or you've always wanted to be in business, but business tax deductions, right? Where that can also, it helps you save some money on some of the things that we already spend money on, right? Like our phones, our office, our computer, our vehicle, whatever the case may be. Avoid ATM fees. When's the last time you took a look at your bank account, right? Do you know what fees that you're paying for on your account, right? Or, how many people get charged overdraft charges or bounce checks, right? Again, looking at different banking fees that often cost us a lot of money. And also, my favorite one especially when it comes to closer to Christmas season, is, number 23, be creative and refrain from overspending on gifts. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to buy anybody a gift. But at the same time, sometimes I feel like it's almost more of an obligation in life that we feel like we need to buy somebody something. And we sometimes, this happens to me quite often, where I buy things that maybe are unnecessary, but I spend too much money on stuff like that, right? And it's just or save money for that, right? I've sat down with many people that they spend a ton of money at Christmas time on their credit card, and then they spend the rest of the year paying it off, and it costs us extra money, right? But if you want to do that and you set a budget for it, maybe you can save up the money ahead of time so you have the cash there and it doesn't cost you extra on interest, right? Just as a thought. But again, I encourage you, go through this list yourself, go through it in your workbook, go through it with someone else, maybe your spouse or the person who invited you, and look at ways that you can potentially add up additional cash flow for yourself and your family each month, right? Maybe there's areas where you can spend less and you can maybe save more, or help pay off a debt, right? It really comes down to our wants versus our needs, right? So cash flow is really a decision in that case. So what is the potential cash flow you can save and apply to your debts, right? And again, if you have no debt, maybe you can apply it to your savings. So remember, I mentioned earlier, is sometimes we feel like we have to start with huge numbers, right? It's like, well, I don't have an extra $500 a month or $1,000 a month to put towards my debt or save. So it doesn't really feel like it's going to be that impactful, right? But just the example of, $6.60 a day, which is quite easy to spend if you go out for a coffee and a muffin, or Tim Hortons is the busiest place here in Winkler. Everybody goes there all the time. But maybe you live in the city and you get Starbucks or whatever it is, really, it's easy to spend $6.60 a day, right? Or $200 a month that is just easily spent on just random things. But what if you had that set aside and it was growing at like an example of 10% year over year? In 10 years, that's almost $40,000. In 20 years, that's about $142,000. And in 30 years, that's about just over $400,000, right? So really the question we have to ask ourselves is, what I'm buying today for $6.60, is it really worth it, or would $408,000 in 30 years benefit me a lot more, right? Again, it's entirely up to us, right? But when we talk about assets and liabilities and net worth, we talk about it in terms of that the financial industry or the financial game, right? So we need to know the rules and the language. I'm not a huge fan of games, I'll be honest. My wife's family loves playing games, and I'm never too big on it. But if I do play, I want to make sure I understand the rules, because I'm not a sore loser, but I hate to lose, right? I become very competitive. So that's probably why I don't really like playing games, because I feel like always a bad side of me comes out. But when it comes to money, it's the same thing, right? So when we are in the money game, we need to know the rules. So what is an asset? An asset is something that has monetary value, right? What is a liability? It's a claim or a debt on that asset, right? Or against it, right? And what is our net worth? We take our assets minus our liabilities, and this equals our net worth. So simply put, an asset puts money in your pocket. So whether that's daily, monthly, yearly, whatever it is, it's, it puts money in your pocket, and liabilities take money out of your pocket, right? So the rich buy assets and the middle class buy liabilities that we think are assets, right? So you need to, when you grow up, you need to buy a house, right? And this is nothing against buying a house, but you grow up, you buy a car, right? And sometimes we look at these things as necessities, and they are, but sometimes I think we view them a little bit, in the wrong way, where we're willing to spend everything we have on this house because someone told us it was an asset, or on this car because we think that it's going to be worth money down the road. I haven't very expensive cars that are worth more money down the road, but is a new luxury car, high-end tech, or high-end purse, a tech toy, or an asset or liability, right? Now, again, this is for everybody else, for everyone to decide for themselves. But what about your new home, right? Is a new home really an asset or a liability? So can we reduce our liabilities and cut down the debt that we have, right? It's a big thing, and I see this a lot with the younger people that I, sit with in town here, or even within Canada, I should say. But often a young couple gets married, or a young person buys their first house, and we end up buying a house based on what we can get approved for at the bank. And sometimes we borrow more money than we need to buy a house that maybe was a lot nicer than what we even needed, right? And we end up becoming and spending a lot of money, and just because we think that it'll be worth more down the road, but it often puts us in a tight spot now. So again, with commitment and discipline, you can get out of debt, right? So this is what we talk about a lot. And I'll be honest, when I first saw this information, I really didn't think that it was possible to, become debt-free and also just stay debt-free, right? I did become debt-free, and then we bought a house. So it's a bit of a better debt than what I had. But at the same time, it still hurt for a little bit. But again, this list is in your book as well. Go through it, look at it. So, you can see what you have. What is it? Is it an asset? Is it a liability? I encourage you, go through this information, add it up. And at the end of the month, is what you're bringing in more than what's going out, or vice versa, right? Are we spending more than what we earn, or are we earning more than what we spend? So again, go through this information, meet with the person who invited you, complete your own personal financial strategy. This is one of the best things I did when I was young, is because it showed me, where my money was going, but it also opened my eyes to see how much I needed to save for my future. And it also made me reevaluate some of the things that I was currently doing. So when, we're all creatures of habit in some way, shape, or form, whether that's when we clasp our hands, cross our arms, button our shirt or our jacket, we all have a way that we do it and everything else that we do in life. But what I'm getting at from this is, do we have a spending or habit or a saving habit, right? Because ultimately, both are a habit, and it comes down to is that habit serving us or is it hurting us? And we live in a society that focuses so much on, what we can get here and now, is that we end up spending a lot of money on things we don't need often, just to do it, right? Because yeah, again, a new phone is nice, a new car or truck is nice, a new house is nice, all these other things. But is it worth the financial sacrifice that we have to maybe make for the long term, right? Or does it hurt our financial goals that we have? So when we talk about building a strong financial house, we talk about the strength that comes from a strong foundation, but also, how is it built? Right. So again, you're gonna see us talk about this in all the workshops, right? Whether that's proper protection, debt management, emergency fund, investments, but building a strong financial foundation so that way when something goes wrong, we're not scrambling. So today we're going to talk more about the debt management side now, right? So as an example, like I mentioned earlier, if you're in debt, don't feel bad, right? Majority of people at some point in their life are in debt. This is by no means to, condemn anybody who's in debt. Me and my wife, we still have debt too. It's not like I'm not sitting here preaching to you because my situation is perfect, right? But again, when I learned this, it actually gave me a lot of hope that there was ways to get out of it and to stay out of debt. But many people will have a mortgage at some point, or a student loan, credit cards, car loan, all these different things. But again, if it's left unchecked or we don't focus on it, sometimes it can grow and we forget about it and we go further into debt without realizing it. The average Canadian is more in debt than ever. Now, again, these numbers are already outdated, but just in Canada alone, it's over $2.2 trillion that Canadians owe, right? Canadians carry an average credit card debt balance of over $3,000 a month, right? And I'm convinced that this is much higher, but again, this is an average. So there's some people that have it, some people that don't. But part of the overall average of the average Canadian having about $21,000 of consumer debt. So this is stuff like our line of credit, our credit cards, our vehicle loans and stuff like that. So I believe that majority of people are tired of paying interest to someone else, right? And I'll be honest, before I understood this, debt didn't really bother me the same way because it didn't make sense to me how it actually cost me that much more money, right? But I'm going to give you an example here. So let's say an example, we go spend $5,000 on our credit card, and the minimum payment is $200 at an interest rate of 19%. Of that $200 we pay, $78 of that is going towards interest, and only $122 is actually going towards our debt of $5,000, right? So again, this is taking into consideration that we're not continually using this credit card, right? This is just a set $5,000 balance and we're paying it off till it's gone. But if we paid the minimum $200 a month, and then obviously the minimum payment goes down over time as the balance goes down, but only paying the minimum, it'll take you 11 and a half years approximately to pay off that $5,000 balance, right? And it's going to cost you just over $3,000 more on top of that $5,000 once it's all said and done, right? So again, this is just one more thing that we're not taught. We're not taught in schools. We're not taught generally in life until it's too late, is what is it actually costing us to be in debt, right? When I bought a car, it never made sense to me when someone said, well, how much is it going to cost you at the end? And I was like, well, I bought it for $12,000. This is my loan payment. And when it's paid off, it's paid off, right? It didn't make any sense to me when someone said, well, it's going to cost you more money at the end, because I just didn't understand that. And maybe that's just me, but that was my simple way of understanding it. This is what I have to pay. If I can pay it off early, that's great. But I didn't really see how much it would save me if I did that. So again, the real cost of being in debt. So imagine now that same family, now we save $5,000 instead of spending 5,000, right? So instead, now we put that $78 a month that would have gone to interest, but we actually put it into savings each month on top of that $5,000 into an account that grew, let's say as an example, at 8%. So 5,000 plus the $78 monthly at 8%, after 30 years, that's about $156,000, right? So again, is what we're buying today, really worth what it could do for us down the road? Now, again, often, and I'm not saying that every time we get into debt that is it's a want versus a need. Sometimes we need a new vehicle. Sometimes ours breaks down, or we hit a deer, or you have an accident, or whatever the case may be. But right, when we get into debt, does it affect our long-term goals, right? So let's make a plan to live debt-free, live within your means, and not increase your debt. Understand how credit cards work. Don't apply for more credit or a higher limit always. Manage credit card issuers many credit card issuers, they actually allow you to freeze or put a lock on your card so you can't spend any more money on it. And again, build the habit of using cash or debit, or work towards not carrying a balance on your credit card. So again, I'm not saying that using a credit card is bad, but again, let's make sure that the money that we don't have, and when we spend money we don't have, it usually costs us more money down the road. So again, now talking about debt a little bit more, debt can quickly spiral out of control, and sometimes there's issues where we have to explore maybe a consolidation or debt counseling services or stuff like this. But sometimes there's another way, right? It takes some time, but it's really cool. And I'm going to show you an example, but it's the debt roll-up or snowball method. And it's a systematic approach of paying off more than the minimum. And as soon as that first balance is paid off, we use that freed up money to pay off the next balance faster, right? So again, what do I mean by that? Is we can take two approaches. One, you can attack, which one to attack first. So it depends who you talk to. But I'm going to give you the example here. If you can pay off the highest interest first, it saves you the most money over time. But if you pay off the smallest balance first, you'll see the progress a lot sooner, right? Which is often, because we pay a little bit more in interest maybe, but it has the greatest emotional satisfaction, right? Because again, human nature is, if I'm going to do something, I want to see a result as quickly as possible, right? And that's why, when we put our food in the microwave for 60 seconds, we take it out at 58 because 2 more seconds to wait is just too long. Or again, maybe that's just me, but we want to see something change right away. So this is a typical, debt repayment schedule of many people that we've worked with. But this is just an example. So let's say total, this family has about $401,000 of debt. They currently pay about $2,857 a month. So what we're going to do is, let's say we went through all their expenses, different things like that, and we were able to find and free up $100 maybe. So we're going to pay the minimum on all these debts, but we're going to add that $100 towards the smallest credit card, right? So now instead of paying $10 a month, we're going to pay $110, right? And so instead of paying this credit card off in 19 months, well, with paying $110 instead of $10 a month, we'll pay it off in 2 months. So now we've freed up essentially an additional $10. So we take that $110 that's no longer going to that credit card, and we roll it up to the next one. So instead of paying $25, we now pay $135, and we pay it off in 6 months instead of 27, right? Does that make sense? And then we free up that $135. So we roll it up to the next debt. And now we're paying $185 instead of $50. And now we pay that debt off in 12 months in this example. And we keep doing that. And we roll it up to the next debt and the next one. And the whole time, we're still paying the same amount per month to our debt. We're just knocking one off at a time, right? Until we get all the way to the mortgage. And now instead of paying, $1,800 a month, they're paying an additional $1,100 towards it. now they're paying off the full mortgage that much faster too, right? So in this example, all we did was add $100 to their amount that they're paying towards their debt. And instead of paying off their debt in 30 years, they paid off that same amount of debt in 17 years just by adding $100, right? I don't know about you, but I was very surprised that $100 made that big of a difference. Because again, I'm not a very patient person, but when it comes to this, so again, getting into debt is easy. It's quick. We can get into a lot of debt very quickly, but when we pay it off like this, it's incredible. Not only did they knock off, almost half the amount of time, when you look at the before and after, just by adding $100, yeah, their total debt was the same in the beginning. The monthly payment only went up by $100. They paid it off in 17 years. But look at the bottom one, the total real debt. In the beginning, if they would have paid for 30 years, they would have paid $736,000 for their debt. And in this case, they would pay about $601,000, right? So they saved about $135,000 just in interest alone that they would have paid over the next, 14, 15 years there, or 13, right? So again, what does the difference of just $100 make, right? Or what about an extra $300 or an extra $1,000? What would that make for a difference for you and your family? Whether that's, again, paying off debt or maybe it's saving money for your future, right? But in this example, just paying off debt, right? How much quicker could it go, right? And how much quicker could families get out of debt? So again, everybody's situation is different, but sometimes it's just about making that intentional effort and actually paying attention to where our money goes and building a plan and sticking to it, right? Again, 17 years, that's a long time to stick to one specific plan, but at the same time, would it be worth it if you at the end save $135,000, right? By not paying more in interest. So just in the last few slides here, true or false, right? Once a credit line is paid off, is it a good idea to close the account? We don't recommend closing all your credit lines because again, they're important to establishing a good credit score. And for borrowing money down the road, if we have a better credit score, we can usually receive better lending terms. So there's different places you can check your credit score, whether that's Equifax, TransUnion, or different places like that. So again, the purpose of this workshop is just to share with you options and ideas, right? Maybe, I remember when I was the deepest in debt, it was sometimes hard to even think about any options because all I was focused on is going to work, earning money just to pay my bills and try to get ahead, right? And I was stuck in just thinking about that. And sometimes it was hard to think outside of the box or think about some other options. So when I got to see this and have someone else take a look at it with me, they were able to come up with a plan and we could actually find a way to do it quicker rather than, just feeling like it was never ending, right? So again, let's develop good long-term habits, build up your credit, but also manage your finances with responsibility and discipline, right? I believe the ultimate goal is to not worry about our credit because that means that we don't need to borrow any money, right? That means that we live 100% based on the money that we have. So what will you change to save more money, right? How will your family, right? So this is, one of my favorite lines here, but who are you working hardest for every day, right? Who really benefits the most from your hard-earned money? Is it your employer, the government, the bank, or is it you and your family, right? Who really benefits the most at the end of the day from the money that we go work for every single day, right? So again, there's many different ways to increase our income. But again, how do we do it? Everybody's situation is different. Maybe you're in the position you can ask for a raise, right? Or sorry, ask nicely for a raise, right? I did this presentation like a month or two ago, and some of the people there, their boss was there too. So it was pretty funny because they all just looked at him when we went through this one. But maybe you have the ability to work overtime, right? This is when he looked at all of them because he figured, yeah, you could work overtime, right? Maybe you have the ability to get a part-time job just to help you out a little bit for the time being. Or maybe you want to start a business, right? Start a part-time business where you can have the ability to earn extra income as well, right? But I encourage you, talk to the person who invited you, look at different options, right? Maybe it's just a temporary thing that you need to do for a while to help you get out of where you're in. But will you shrink your dream to fit your income or increase your income to fit your dream, right? I believe it's so much easier often to do the first one where we start working in life and we realize that the income that we're making might not be enough to reach some of the things that we want to do. And we just start removing some of the things from the list that we wanted to work towards, right? But again, there's ways to increase our income if we look for them. So again, in summary, I can find ways to save money by consistently reevaluating my monthly expenses. I can manage my debt and plan to pay them off faster using debt roll-up, right? So again, if you have debt, I encourage you, I forgot to mention that, but there's on our website, or I believe in the book too, there's a QR code, right? If you scan that, it'll take you to the WSB website, or worldsystembuilder.com/debt roll-up, I think is what it is. Or go on the website under the workshop calculators, and it'll give you the debt roll-up calculator, and you can put your own debts in there, and it'll show you how much faster you can pay off your debt by using debt roll-up. And it's pretty cool, actually. I did it the other day for a lady, and we were able to show her that if she just added $100, she would save herself about $30,000 in interest, and she'd pay off her debt about 10, 11 years faster, right? So again, take a look at it. It might be worth giving a try. In addition to saving more and spending less, I can find ways to earn more money as well. So again, what else did you learn that will help you increase your cash flow? I encourage you, share with the person who invited you. So just imagine this though. Do you think that if people understood what liabilities were, that we would have less debt, right? I truly believe that if I would have understood how much money I needed to buy a house back when I was younger, I would have probably not bought some of the multiple cars that I own throughout my life, right? Because again, my goal was to buy a house. It was to move out, but I never knew how much that would take. And it also seemed very impossible at that time. So I didn't even give it any effort or thought, right? So again, I know buying a house is going into debt, but if we understood where, what was important to us, I think we would have a lot less debt. Living debt free, wouldn't living debt free be a much less stressful way to live? I truly believe so. I believe that families be a lot less stressed if they, if we went to work every day and we went to work for us and our families rather than just to pay the bills that we've built up for ourselves by getting into debt. A time when you had no debt or payments and how much simpler life was, right? So again, some of us have to think back a lot further than others, but what does that look like? And do you believe you can actually get there again? So if you could use your income for building financial freedom, how much better would life look and feel with no financial liabilities, right? Imagine that family in that example. Let's say they pay off all $400,000 of their debt. Now they've essentially freed up almost $3,000 a month that they were paying towards debt. How fast do you think you could save up if you were saving $3,000 a month, right? And you were working just as hard, but now you were working that hard to save for you and your family instead of working that hard to pay off some debt, right? So again, it's just a different way of thinking about it. So what would it feel like for you, right? So I encourage you, take some time, think about it, and make a plan, right? Like I said, if you're not in debt, that's awesome. But again, maybe you know someone who is. So just a quick testimony from our community, from our campaign. This person that shared is just said, I just want to share what I'm learning with our campaign, which I'm applying to my own finances. I follow the Financial Foundation by heart. I'm proud to say that I have proper protection and I have wiped out any debt so that each month all my credit card balances show 0, right? I've also built a significant emergency fund that can cover my monthly expenses for a year. as the workshop states, it's not how much money we make, but how much money we save that matters most, right? So again, if you're not a part of our WSB community, I encourage you, talk to the person who invited you as well. It's awesome to get to see all of these people share on there every day, of people in our community who are saving more money, paying off debt, helping families and stuff like that. So, be a part of that. And only you can take the steps necessary for your future. We can share all this great information. I can give you a ton of ideas, and it's often easy to give ideas when you're not the one that has to pay the bills. But one of the greatest miracles in life is that you can change your life simply by changing the way you think. So again, I'm gonna give you homework. I'm not a big fan of homework. I'll be honest. I've never really been good at doing it. But the homework I'm going to give you is just to connect with the person that invited you. Reach out to them, share with them something that you learned today. And if you want to apply some of it, talk to them about it, right? But I encourage you, join the campaign and bring someone to a workshop with you next time, right? Come back, help us share this information with more people faster. We're only a few years away from trying to reaching our goal of 30 million by 2030, right? So we need your help to do that as well. So work with the person who invited you and come back to the next workshop. And I encourage you, bring somebody along, right? Where we can share this campaign with many people at a time and educate more families. So that being said, thank you everybody for joining us today. I know we're just before 2:00 here, my time. But that being said, I hope everybody has a fantastic day. Hope to see you on another workshop and enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you and bye.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.